Hello, Hub City kids. How are you doing? I hope you had a good week. Is it still sunshiny by Sunday? Because today is Thursday and it's a beautiful day, and it was a pretty nice day yesterday too, and it's making me so excited about spring and all the flowers that are blooming in my house, all around my house, and it's wonderful. I have daffodils everywhere, and so my house this time of year looks so happy and cheery, and it makes me happy and cheery. So hopefully you are feeling happy and cheery as well, and that you don't have allergies, because that's not fun. So we are in the book of Exodus. Hopefully you said that and you remember that. And it's been a while since we've talked about this. Do you remember what Exodus means? Because that word means something. It pretty much means a whole big group of people moving from one place to the next. So they were moving out of Egypt into this promised land, and it's a whole bunch of people. A lot of people, men, women, and children, and there's so many of them, and they all are working together under God to get to this new, beautiful, promised land that God has made for them and set aside for them. So we've had a couple of things happen. We are 19 chapters into this book. So why don't you pause for a minute and tell each other what some of the things that you remember that have happened so far in this video. Ready? I'm not going to make a funny face. You'll just have to pause it on whatever crazy face I make that I'm not even trying to make. Got it? Okay. So God has done lots of good things. Lots and lots and lots of them. Why is it important for us to remember what those good things are? Why is it important that they remembered those good things? Because we keep forgetting, because they kept forgetting. We see throughout the whole Bible, and this story in Exodus is such a good example of that, where God does an amazing thing, something that is beyond imagination, beyond description, so unfathomable that we can't even believe that it's ever happened and it will happen again. And then literally 3 days later, they forget. So we have to remind each other. And that's why community is so important. We as a family, as a church, we get to spend that time reminding each other of what God has done for us throughout the whole Bible and throughout all time. And then we can also do that in each of our own lives. There are good things that God has done for you just in your life. Even if you've only been alive for 5 years, God has done some pretty amazing things. And we get to spend that time reminding each other of what those good things are, so that we don't grumble and complain like the Israelites did. So we're going to read chapter 19 and talk about chapter 20 today. But I want to remind you of something. Do you remember a few weeks ago when we talked about the word covenant? Can you say that word? Covenant. Do you remember what that word meant? It meant promise. And God made a couple of covenants so far already in the Bible. We're in the second book of the Bible, and God has already made covenants with Abraham. Oh, I'm not doing it in order. With Adam, with Noah, and with Abraham. And now we briefly talked about the Mosaic Covenant, and we are about to read about that. It's that covenant between God's people and and God. And it's pretty special. So remember Abraham, God promised Abraham, his covenant with Abraham was that Abraham's descendants, his children's would be as numerous as the stars. And he fulfilled that. And now he's about to make a covenant with those descendants of Abraham. So you're going to read Exodus 19, 1 through 12 as a family. Ready? Pause. Is that a funny one? Okay. So what happened in this passage? Did you tell each other what you remember? God is basically saying, this is what I did for you. I brought you out of Egypt. I defeated your enemies right in front of your eyes. I have given you food and water out of like rocks and nothing. The bread is coming from nothing. I am providing for you. I am feeding you, and I am leading you into a beautiful, wonderful life. I took you from slavery into a land of freedom and a life of freedom. So I'm doing all of these things for you, and I am making you my people. And in order for you to live in this covenant, I'm going to give you some expectations that you need to fulfill to be a part of my covenant. And what do God's people say? They say, okay, we can do that. We agree. This is kind of the point when you're making a business deal, when both of the parties would shake hands and say like, okay, both of us can agree to these terms. God hadn't actually given his people those terms yet, and that's what chapter 20 is all about. So God comes down and is at the foot of he's on a mountain, and his people are at the feet of the mountain. And he warns them through Moses that you need to spend 3 days making yourself clean before I can come and talk to Moses. And this is clean like they all had to take a shower, but this is all clean in their hearts as well. They needed to make their whole selves clean. Why do you think that is? God is good all of the time. He is only good. And we are not only good. We are full of brokenness and blackness and sin, and we need to be clean in order to be in God's presence. And so they spent 3 days making sacrifices and cleansing themselves and preparing their hearts and their minds to be even close to Jesus. And you don't read it in those 12 verses, but I'm going to read to you what happened when God came onto the mountain in verse 16. On the morning of the 3rd day, there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast, so that all the people in the camp trembled. Then Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they took their stand at the foot of the mountain. Now, Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord had descended on it in fire. The smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. And as the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. That's pretty amazing. That would be terrifying, wouldn't it? In the Jesus Storybook Bible, we can read that story on page 100. This is page 104. But this is all of God's people at the foot of the mountain, and here's Moses, and here's God speaking in thunder. Can you imagine how scary that would be to have the whole mountain around you shaking? So once Moses is up on that mountain, God gives him 13 commandments. Did I trick you? There's not 13, there's 10 commandments. He gives him 10 commandments. Do you know what they are? Do you know some of them? Real quick, why don't you see if you as a family can get all 10? I can do all 10. Ready? I learned them in the King James Version. So you can open up your Bible and see if you can test me to make sure I got them all, but they're going to be a little bit different. Ready? Have no other God before me, not make unto me any graven image, not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land the Lord thy God has given thee. Do not steal, do not commit adultery, do not lie, do not covet, and do not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. That wasn't the right one. I got mixed up. So I only got 9 on that one. Ready? So here's the thing. He didn't just give them 10 laws. He gave them over 600. Most of the book of Numbers and Deuteronomy are full of more of these rules. So here's my question. Why did God give his people all of these rules? If they mess up one time, does that mean, well, a better question is, can we ever not mess up? No, we are not ever going to be able to keep all of these rules. Does God stop loving us once we mess up one time? He doesn't. Because God has a rescue plan already in place when this is done, and we are lucky because we already know the rescue plan. If we were to keep all of these rules and spend all of our time keeping them all and making checklists and never violating any of the 600 laws, would we make our way to be with Jesus? No, because it's impossible. God uses these rules to set his people apart from other people. It's not necessarily a way for us to have to do all of the right things. It's a way to show the people around us that we are God's people. I don't really watch or like sports very much, but it's kind of like if you are a huge Beavers fan, you wear a Beavers jersey or a Beavers hat, and then no matter where you go, if somebody else is also a Beavers fan, they can say, hey, I know something about you. You are a Beavers fan. And then you immediately have something in common, and you are a part of a club, right? That's kind of like what these rules are like, these commandments. It's a way for us to say, we are part of this club. We are God's people, and we have these things in common, and everybody around us can look at us and say, that person belongs to God. And I know that because they look different. And there's a lot of rules, but they can pretty much be summed up in 2 rules. Love God more than anything else, and love your neighbor. Because if you love your neighbor, you're probably not going to steal from them or murder them or covet any of the things that they have. That just means want the things that they have. I think that was maybe the law that I missed earlier. So what does this passage teach us about ourselves? It teaches me that we have to spend a long time being clean before we can be with God. That's at that beginning of that passage that we read. They spent 3 days focusing on making themselves clean just to be at the foot of the mountain where God was. We will never, ever, 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 ever be able to follow all of the rules perfectly that God sets in front of us because it's impossible. And we are not good at remembering the things that God has done for us. We constantly have to be reminded of them. That's the first thing God says to his people is, remember what I did for you? I set you free. I defeated your enemies. I've provided for you. So what does this teach us about God? There's some good news here, because it teaches us that God is willing to come down to be with us. This mountain experience for Sinai is a foreshadowing of Jesus coming down to be with us in an even better way. The people of Israel had to make themselves clean to be before God. But Jesus, which was God's plan all the way from back then, Jesus came down into our world where we didn't make ourselves clean. We can't make ourselves clean because Jesus did that for us. That's the best news ever. What else does it teach us about God? He keeps his covenants, his promises all of the time, even when we don't. So even though he sets these 10 commandments for us, he knows from the beginning that we will never be able to fulfill them. So he already has a plan in place to fulfill that for us. We're going to fail, but Jesus never will. Jesus is keeping that covenant promise because we will fail every time. And God is powerful. I love this image of God on the mountain making creation tremble. God is in control of all of those things. If he can literally move mountains, then he can do anything else. If he can make bread fall from the sky, then he can take care of you and me and all of our problems, whether they're big or they're small. So those are some really important things for us to remember. How do those things change the way that you live your week? I know that this has really helped me. The study of Exodus has really helped me remember to just remind myself of all of the good things God has done. When I catch myself grumbling, I can remind myself or have somebody else remind me of how good God is and what he's done to take care of me. So our craft today is, we have 10 fingers on each hand. Not on each hand. We have 10 fingers total, and there's also 10 commandments. So here are the commandments, and they're split up into the love God and love your neighbor category. So this is just a reminder, and you can spend some time memorizing those better than I just did, and spend some time coloring those and having fun with that. So I miss you, Hub City kids, and I hope to see you all very, very soon.